Segment achat esrei nikud achat nikud alef. Al kein lo shulechu ha'am. Al kein lo shulechu ha'am. Through this segment, we'll experiment with reporting concerning a calamity or the avoidance of a calamity. Have you ever been an eyewitness to an accident? Often calamities or accidents happen so quickly that we may not be exactly sure how things take place, but we're able to describe afterwards what we see on the scene. Take a moment to read over these 6 elements of a sample accident based on a mishap involving a flash flood. First, let's consider statement chamesh, especially the verb they were not found. If we were to express this in Hebrew, we'd want to employ the shoresh matzah. If it were an active voice statement, they found, or even negated, they did not find, we would employ the kal binyan. For this shoresh matzah, the passive voice is expressed with the nifal binyan. So the basic verbal expression, in the positive sense, they were found, would be nimtzeu, or negated, as in the context of this particular story, lo nimtzeu. By way of reminder, what is expressed as active voice in the kal binyan often will employ a nifal binyan in the same shoresh to supply its passive voice. Now let's consider statement shesh. How can we express the concept, splendid things were spoken? To speak would call for the shoresh davar in the piel binyan, but to say were spoken calls for a passive voice. The binyan supplying the passive voice for piel verbs is known as the pual binyan. Once again, for a verb whose active voice rests in the piel binyan, its passive voice will arise from the pual binyan. For that reason, and they were spoken, would be expressed vayeduberu, vayeduberu. While we can see a yiktol conjugation embedded within the vayiktol of vayeduberu, we can see a katal conjugation in the pual binyan in the heading for this segment. Focus on the word shulechu. Shulechu is pual. It's katal conjugation. It means they were sent off. When we come to segment achat esrei, nikud achat, nikud beit, we'll find snapshot tables that give the various conjugations and participle forms for the pual binyan. We'll employ davar as the model verb. Here are the distinguishing features of pual in the katal and yiktol conjugations. First, that second radical dagesh that we found in the piel, that is in the active voice, this will persist in the pual, the passive voice, as well. You will see the dagesh in lamed of shulechu, that's katal, and you will see a dagesh in the beit of yeduberu, that's yiktol. Perhaps the morphological feature that will be most striking to you will be the kibbutz vowel under the first radical. So notice under the shin of shulechu, a kibbutz vowel, and similarly under the dalet of yeduberu. These announce the pual binyan. Notice the u sound even in the binyan name, pual. The prefixes and suffixes that you have learned to distinguish subjects for binyanim such as kal will continue to serve you well, distinguishing the various subjects associated with the pual conjugation. In your reading of the Hebrew Bible, you will encounter participles and infinitives in the pual binyan. It's conceivable that the community using the biblical Hebrew language would have employed pual imperatives, although none are extant within the biblical record. Now let's proceed to see how we might report on a calamity. Begin by selecting a scenario. Choose from any of these 3, either a mishmar, a tzon, or an heichal. Notice the cluster of 4 nouns that are associated with specific scenarios. So, for mishmar, we're given the nouns asir, Chel HaMelech, mishmar, which is the same as the scenario, and sha'ar. For the second scenario, we have dov, shevet, se, and koach roeh. The nouns associated with heichal are, again, the scenario itself, heichal, and gag, mochrei eitz, kohen, o melech. You have a choice there. After selecting a scenario and becoming acquainted with the nouns associated with it, notice then the 6 forces: oyev, eish, barad, mayim, sufa, and ra'ash. Select one of these 6 forces and imagine that it has interacted powerfully with the scenario that you have chosen. For example, if you selected oyev, imagine if it interacted with mishmar, particularly with the sha'ar of the mishmar. How would the sha'ar appear after the oyev had come up against it? Would it be destroyed? Would it be broken? Next, please select 3 of the 4 elements that are listed for the given scenario that you have chosen, and proceed to compose 1 sentence for each element, describing what you imagine happening as the force that you have selected interacts with that element. It's suggested that you would maintain the same force affecting all 3 elements in your scenario. If, however, you wish to vary the forces so that perhaps oyev affects the first element, eish affects the second, and barad affects the third, you certainly have that freedom. Only please let your description be such that it's consistent with whatever force you are selecting interacting with a given element. Finally, in step Sheva, please let at least one of your 3 sentences employ a pu'al form. This may be in the yiktol, katal, participle infinitive, but let one of the 3 employ a pu'al form. It would be a good idea to circle that form to help it be more easily recognizable. You will want to write down what is the force that you have in mind for your descriptions. Make note of that for future reference. You'll be employing this in segment Achat Esrei Nikud Achat Nikud Gimel. Here's a collection of verbs in the Pu'al Binyan. Notice that the definitions given in the far right column are the dedicated Pu'al meanings. Rather than giving a complete katal or yiktol or even all participial forms, only samples are given. Please refer to the snapshot found in the next segment if you need to derive a related form. Let's read through these forms. We'll move across each row, beginning with usaf. Usaf, ye'usaf. Ma'usaf, ma'usefet. Borach, yevorach. Mevorach, mevorechet. Dubar, yedubar. Medubar, meduberet. Hulal, yehulal. Mehulal, mehulelet. Yusad, yeyusad. Meyusad, meyusedet. Kula, yechula. Mechule, mechula. Kusa, yechusa. Mechuse, mechusa. Sugar, yesugar. Mesugar, mesugeret. Supar, yesupar. Mesupar, mesuperet. Tzuva, yetzuva. Metzuve, metzuva. Shulach, yeshulach. Meshulach, meshulechet. shudad, yeshudad, meshudad, meshudedet. Shulam, yeshulam, meshulam, meshulemet. Finally, a note concerning the binyan known as polal. As you may recall, hollow verbs do not produce technically a PL binyan. Rather, they are spelled as a polal binyan in place of the PL. That's the active voice. In order to produce the corresponding passive voice, what we would expect to be a pual, in the case of hollow verbs, it's known as the polal binyan. So once again, hollow verbs will produce the polel, corresponding to the PL, and the polal for the passive voice. As an example, the polel verb romem means he exalted someone. This is in the active voice. If we wished to say he is exalted by someone, passive voice, this would be expressed as romam.